My name is Aaliyah Monroe. I'm 38 years old and live in Denver, Colorado. If anyone has ever seen me in a charcoal suit presenting to shareholders at a finance conference in Manhattan, they might assume I was raised in a nurturing family where talent was valued and encouraged. They'd be wrong. I grew up in a two-story farmhouse on the outskirts of Fort Collins, where love wasn't evenly shared and fairness seemed non-existent. In that house, no one counted how hard I tried. Only how many times my younger brother stumbled, so the whole family could rush to lift him like he was the only child they had. I'm the eldest. Full name, Aaliyah Monroe, daughter of Henry and Denise Monroe. Outsiders would say I had everything. 3 meals a day, good schools, a solid roof over my head. But inside, I was a shadow. The easy kid, the one who could handle herself. No one asked if I was okay because they simply assumed I always would be. As for my brother Jacob, well, Jacob was the sky. From the beginning, he was the center of every family conversation. Whenever anything happened, all eyes, all concern went straight to him. By the time I was 8, I could cook noodles and do my own laundry. He, meanwhile, was still being spoon-fed by my mother like a little prince who refused to grow up. I used to think, maybe I have to sacrifice because I'm the older sister. But that sacrifice stretched on, year after year, until it hardened into habit. And when I began to question it, they called it selfish. Jacob is 3 years younger than me, yet he's always been regarded as the future man of the house, even though he never truly accomplished anything. When I graduated high school with honors and got accepted to the University of Chicago, my mother said exactly one thing. Well, I figured you'd get in. But when Jacob got into an average private college, the whole family threw a backyard barbecue. My father invited half the neighborhood. I remember exactly how that felt. Not jealousy, just numbness. I didn't need applause, but I didn't deserve to be invisible either. The contrast only deepened when Jacob started failing. He dropped out of his first major, claiming the environment didn't suit him. My parents hired a private tutor, switched his school, and blamed the curriculum. The second time he dropped out, my mother cried for 3 days straight, while my father muttered, "He just hasn't found his path yet." As for me, I was shelving books at the campus library to pay for my finance degree. But I wasn't entirely alone. There was one person who always saw me, always believed in me. My grandmother, Evelyn Monroe, was the only one in our family who didn't see me through the lens of the capable older daughter who needs nothing. She had been widowed in her early 50s. Before that, she and my grandfather had built a construction supply company in Colorado. After he passed from a sudden stroke, she took over and turned it into a well-known regional firm. Every weekend, she'd invite me over, but instead of movies or shopping trips like other grandmas, she taught me how to read financial reports. When I was 12, she brought me to a shareholders meeting. At 14, she handed me a stack of letter-sized pages and said, "These are the stocks I'm investing in. Pick 3 you like and tell me why." I chose Microsoft, Johnson & Johnson, and a small biotech company I'd seen mentioned in Forbes. She laughed, a proud laugh I had never seen on my mother's face. "You've got a mind for money, not just for saving it, but for growing it. Don't let anyone shut that down, not even your parents." I never forgot those words. At 16, she helped me open my first investment account using the $300 I'd saved tutoring neighborhood kids in math. She told me, "Financial freedom is the one thing that'll keep your head held high." Her words stayed with me my whole life. And she was right. It didn't just save me, it anchored me when everything in the family began to fall apart, again, because of Jacob. I got the call from her attorney on a February morning when snowflakes still clung to the 11th-story window of my apartment. Luther DeWitt's voice came through the phone, deep and deliberate, cutting clean through the rhythm of my carefully managed day. "Ilya, Eveline designated you as the primary beneficiary in the will she updated last year. I think you should come in this week." I paused for a few seconds. Not from shock. My grandmother always planned everything in silence, but because A sinking feeling washed over me. Inheriting from her would come with more than assets. Prying eyes, veiled questions, and words disguised as family concern. 3 days later, I sat in Luther's Denver office. Oak-paneled walls, the scent of old paper and leather, and on the desk, a full copy of her will. I couldn't take my eyes off the bolded section on page 3. I leave all real property in Telluride, the investment portfolio including corporate bonds and clean energy equities, and all family heirlooms in my possession to my granddaughter, Aaliyah Monroe, trusting that she will honor, protect, and shield them from undue family influence. Jacob was allocated a small grant, $75,000, locked behind strict conditions, only accessible if he completed a vocational program or a legitimate startup plan approved by a third party. The fund would be managed by an independent trustee. No family interference allowed. I flipped to the last page, where she had handwritten a few lines, her script slanted, bold, and somehow still warm. Aaliyah, if you're reading this, it's possible they're pressuring you. Don't back down. This inheritance isn't just money. It's what I preserved my entire life. For someone worthy. They won't understand. They'll get angry. But stand firm. For you, for them, for those who came before. I folded the documents, took a long breath. Luther watched silently. I assume my parents don't know the specifics yet. They know she left assets, but not how it's divided. I think you should prepare yourself. I left with the copy in my bag, in a blizzard of memories swirling in my head like snow whipped over a mountaintop. 3 months earlier, at Evelyn's funeral in Fairmount Cemetery, my mother, Denise, kept a composed face, but her hands clenched tighter every time my name came up in the eulogy. My father, Henry, didn't bother hiding the fact that he avoided my gaze. Jacob arrived 17 minutes late in a wrinkled suit and stood at the front as if he were the centerpiece of grief. I don't hold it against them. But I'm not naive, either. Back in high school, Evelyn had once told me, if one day I leave you something big, you must understand. You won't just inherit value. You'll carry the burden of protecting it from those who'll try to twist it. I thought I understood. But it wasn't until I opened her personal safe that I felt the full weight of what she warned me about. And under stacks of investment folders and a faded velvet jewelry box, I found a slim binder, labeled Evelyn Monroe Fund for Sustainability Plan. And inside were blueprints to convert the old farm property into a solar research center for Native communities in Colorado. She had quietly partnered with a group of engineers, secured preliminary building permits, and even lined up grants from 2 nonprofits. I stood frozen in her Pinewood office. Not for the money, but because her will still speaks to me, more clearly than any conversation I've ever had with my parents. When I left the Telluride house that evening, a light rain had begun to fall. The silver-gray roof trembled under the rhythm of raindrops. I turned back for one last look, my chest tight. All those years of living in Jacob's shadow hadn't killed my mind, but they'd made me forget that I had every right to say no. I flipped on my signal and turned onto Interstate 70, the engine humming steady against the dark. My thoughts, though clouded with dread, were already gearing up for the battle ahead. Because I knew, once they found out the truth, they wouldn't just be angry. They would come for it all, and I wouldn't let that happen. The text from my mother came on Thursday at 2:17 p.m., right in the middle of a Zoom call with a group of investment clients from Boston. Just 6 words. No greeting. No softened tone. Family meeting, Sunday. It's important. Flat, as a secretary rescheduling a dentist appointment. But I knew the subtext. In my family, a meeting never meant togetherness. It was always a lead-in to a demand. Usually dressed in moral language, layered with guilt heavy as granite. I leaned back in my chair, the overhead light casting a sterile glow across the glass-top desk. Once again, I could already guess what was coming. Probably about Jacob. I didn't have to wait long. That afternoon, Veronica... My best friend and colleague of 10 years, dropped by my office with 2 lattes and a serious look. "What's wrong? You look like you're about to blow." I showed her the message. She raised an eyebrow, unsurprised. "Don't tell me this is about Jacob again." "I bet it's debt. I noticed some strange activity in the trust accounts lately." Veronica set her cup down, eyes narrowing. "What kind of activity?" I opened my laptop, pulling up a private folder. The numbers didn't lie. Someone had attempted to access Evelyn's investment accounts. They were secured with multiple layers of encryption, but 2 weeks ago, there'd been a failed login attempt from an IP address located in Fort Collins, where my parents still lived. I froze. Only 3 people besides me knew that account existed: Luther, his legal assistant, and my father, Henry Monroe. He at once asked to see the portfolio for transparency, shortly after the funeral. I had said no, firmly, but now I wasn't sure he'd respected that boundary. Things got clearer when I checked my company email inbox. In the spam folder, flagged, was an email from a strange address: blowinfo.assist@gmail.com. Subject: Monroe Asset Transfer Plan, Internal Draft. I opened it, fingers trembling. Inside was a PDF attachment labeled Confidential Draft, Family Trust Restructuring. The draft proposed the creation of something called the Monroe Family Stability Fund. Creator, Henry Monroe. Co-trustee, Denise Monroe. Flexible beneficiary, Jacob Monroe. My name was nowhere. The draft stated its goal: to consolidate all real estate holdings, investment portfolios, and valuable items currently under Aaliyah Monroe into a single family trust. This restructuring aims to ensure financial stability for the entire family. At the end of the file was a scanned handwritten note. Aaliyah will resist at first, but just mention Jacob's danger. She'll fold. She always does. I left the office at 8 p.m. without saying a word. No music, no lights on in the car. Just those same 3 sentences repeating in my head. They've planned this. They think I'm easy to sway. They think I'll sacrifice myself again. Instead of heading home, I drove straight to the old family house in Fort Collins. I still had a key, left over from the days I house sat for them every winter when they went down to Florida. The porch light was off, but I saw a glow in the downstairs office window. I cut the engine and slipped in through the side kitchen door, the one Mom used for grocery runs. The house still smelled like her favorite curtain spray. I didn't flip a light switch, just went straight to Dad's office. There, on the desk, sat a wide-open file folder next to a half-drunk glass of whiskey. I leaned in and scanned the pages. It was the full version of the trust restructuring plan. Notes included a new lawyer, someone other than Luther. One section listed estimated asset values: sell Telluride home, approximate $4 million. Liquidate family heirloom jewelry, approximate $600,000. Transfer all clean energy stocks into flexible trust holdings. They were planning to dismantle everything my grandmother left behind. A thicker manila envelope caught my eye. Inside, I found a debt summary for Jacob, totaling nearly $320,000. It included Vegas casino markers, consumer credit cards, and one line item in red: private loan, non-bank source, due in 30 days. I took photos of every page, every note, every dollar, then carefully placed everything back as it was. They couldn't know I'd seen it. On the drive back to Denver, I didn't play music. Didn't call anyone. Just one thought beat steady in my mind. If they believed I'd stay quiet, they were in for a surprise. I met Avery Klein on Monday morning, just after dawn. Her office was on the 18th floor of a downtown Denver glass tower, a sharp contrast to Luther's old oak-paneled firm. Avery wasn't the type to wear vintage suits or carry leather briefcases. She wore a bone-colored blazer with razor-sharp seams, suede heels, and her handshake had the exact firmness of someone who didn't flinch under pressure. "Did you bring all the documents?" she asked briskly. I placed the file down. Asset sheets, will copies, screenshots of unauthorized documents, and especially the emails that spelled out my parents' intent. Avery skimmed through them, eyes like scalpels. "If what you're telling me is accurate, we can block any access attempt from their side. But we need to act fast. You have 3 days. Tops." I nodded. "Start now. I'm not letting them take a single penny from what my grandmother built." Avery turned to her assistant. "Call the property registrar. Begin title transfer of the Tellarite home into a new trust. Prepare formation docs for an irrevocable living trust under the name M Legacy Fund. Everything needs to be double-locked. Maximum confidentiality." That afternoon, I reached out to Luther to collect the remaining hard documents Evelyn had signed and asked him to assist with migrating the investment portfolio. He didn't ask many questions, just placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "Evelyn once told me, if there was anyone sharp enough to protect what she stood for, it was you. Now's the time to prove it." I didn't sleep that night. My mind spun with tax codes, processing timelines, and what might happen if they caught wind too early. I double encrypted every login, set my phone to silent, blocked all family contact. On the second day, I personally visited the bank that held the safe deposit box containing our family's heirloom jewelry and artifacts. Box number 227, deep in the basement behind concrete and fingerprint-locked steel. The staff led me into a private room. "How much time will you need?" 10 minutes. I can handle it myself." I opened the box. Inside were the sapphire brooch my grandmother wore when she met the town mayor, the pearl necklace passed down through 3 generations, her wedding ring, and a small notebook from her early business days. I carefully placed each item into protective sleeves, making sure nothing was left behind. On my way out of the bank, I sent Avery a message. "Jewelry and keepsakes secured, ready for transfer to the fund this afternoon." By noon, we finalized the creation of the EM Legacy Fund, with me listed as both the sole grantor and beneficiary. An irrevocable clause was activated. No one, not even family members, could alter, access, or request disbursements without my written consent. The investment portfolio was restructured through an independent asset management firm. My name was removed from all visible systems. To outsiders, the assets now appeared to be owned by a non-profit organization, not an individual. By the third day, everything had been transferred. The Telluride home? The new title had been certified and recorded. The stock portfolio? Safely within a specialized trust account. The jewelry, heirlooms, and legacy documents? In transit to a museum-grade secure storage facility. That evening, I received a text from my mother. "Jacob's in serious trouble. We need to talk." Sunday, 3 p.m. Shortly after came an email from my father. No greeting, no signature, just an attached document titled Asset Authorization, with a note. "We need you to sign this before the family's new attorney proceeds with consolidation." I turned off the screen and leaned back in my chair. They still thought I was the same obedient Aaliyah who used to pour tea during family meetings, nodding along to every one of my father's decisions. Too bad. That girl no longer exists. I arrived at exactly 3 p.m. My father's Range Rover was already parked in the driveway. Jacob's car was there too. The red Dodge Charger he proudly claimed was leased to maintain the self-made entrepreneur image. The white wooden doors swung open before I even knocked. My mother stood there, her hair in a tight bun, a pearl bracelet on her wrist, her makeup meticulous, as if she were hosting a tea party, not staging a family-wide manipulation. "You're here, Aaliyah. Come in. Your father and Jacob are waiting." I stepped across the threshold. The familiar scent of Chanel No. 5 lingered in the air, like perfume infused with memories I wanted to forget. The living room looked like a staged set. Velvet couches, gleaming glass tables, neatly arranged documents at the center. My father, Henry, sat at the head of the table, white shirt buttoned to the collar, reading glasses perched on his nose. Jacob sat to his right, slouched in a wrinkled track jacket, looking tired but still clinging to his usual arrogance. I didn't sit. Let's begin. I don't have much time. My father cleared his throat, the same way he always did before slipping into his decision-maker persona. Aaliyah, we asked you here for a very serious matter. Our family is facing a significant crisis. Call it what it is, I cut in. Jacob is drowning in gambling debt. Close to $500,000, right? No immediate response. My mother pressed her lips together. Jacob rolled his eyes, tapping his fingers against his knee. My father set his pen down. So you already know? I know the creditors, the interest rates. I know the self-pay title is just code for unregulated loan sharks. No one denied it. My mother sighed, her voice full of practiced concern. My son made mistakes, but he's trying to make things right. Aren't you, Jacob? Jacob nodded faintly, his voice shaky. I've joined a support group. I know I need help. This help costs $443,000, I said. So, what's the plan? Sell Grandma's assets? Create a family trust? Pressure me into signing for shared future stability? My mother sat upright. You're too suspicious. This is all to protect Jacob. He's in danger. There are people out there. If they're truly dangerous, then the last thing we should do is keep digging the hole. But I get it now. I'm the fallback plan. I pulled out a folder from my bag and laid it on the glass table. Let's skip the theatrics. This is confirmation that the EM Legacy Fund is active. Real estate, investments, physical assets, all legally protected. No one, including you, can touch them. Not anymore. My father's face tightened. Jacob shot up from his seat. What the hell are you talking about? I'm saying the manipulation stops here. My mother looked at me like I'd just declared war. You can't be that selfish. We're family. Family doesn't draft secret consolidation documents, impersonate me to request paperwork, or write things like, she'll soften once Jacob's in danger. I locked eyes with her. Do you call that love, or is that just strategy? Jacob flung the papers across the table. Mom, don't waste your breath. She clearly doesn't care about any of us. I turned to my father. If you're thinking about legal action, go ahead. Avery Klein would love to dismantle a meritless case riddled with misrepresentation and false intent. Are you threatening your parents? My mother snapped. No. I'm protecting the only thing in this family that still holds any integrity, Grandma Evelyn's legacy. Silence. Only the ticking of the grandfather clock filled the room. Jacob slammed his fist on the table. Fine, let me die then. Let them come for me. You'll sleep just fine, won't you? You don't have to die, Jacob. But you can't keep living on someone else's dime. You need to stop. Take responsibility. What would you know? You've never failed. Wrong. You've never had to stand up alone. I've done it 100 times. With no one reaching out a hand. My mother suddenly softened. She leaned in, her hand resting gently on mine, as if slipping back into a maternal role. Aaliyah, you're capable. But surely, you're not heartless. Jacob is your blood. I calmly pulled my hand back. Blood doesn't mean a lifelong debt. If I help now, I'm just letting Jacob die slower. My father rose and grabbed the briefcase. Fine. If you want to fight, you'll get one. I stood up too, adjusting my blazer. If it means keeping you from destroying what Grandma left behind, then yes. I'm ready. As I stepped out of that house, I didn't look back. Behind me, I could hear Jacob yelling, my mother calling my name like a drawn-out line from a worn-out stage play. But inside me, only one thing echoed. My grandmother's words, once written in the margins of her journal. Stand your ground. Because sometimes kindness is just another word for manipulation. The next morning, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. A deep, male voice came through, hesitant but steady. Aaliyah, this is Uncle... Thomas. Thomas Monroe. His name rang in my head like a ghost from a forgotten childhood. My father's older brother. The one who had vanished from family gatherings when I was still in high school. The whole family barely mentioned him, and when they did, it was in clipped phrases like, the traitor, the one who always made things difficult. I'm surprised you have my number. Luther gave it to me. He said you're in a complicated situation. I sat down, tightening my grip on the coffee mug. That's one way to put it. There are things you need to know. Not to hurt anyone, but to understand how things ended up this way. Can you meet me? This afternoon, Southridge Cafe, 4 o'clock. Thomas Monroe had aged considerably, but his eyes remained sharp and alert. He wore a light gray button-down shirt, no tie, a calm presence completely at odds with how my father used to sneer. Thomas always plays the noble one, but can't earn a steady buck. When I sat down, he gave a polite nod and handed me a thick envelope. Inside is everything you need to understand this didn't just start a few months ago. Your family, truthfully, has been sinking because of Jacob for over a decade. I didn't open the envelope right away. I wanted to hear it from him directly. Start from the beginning. Thomas sighed, like he was finally untying a knot he'd held onto for 10 years. When Jacob was a sophomore at Stanford, he racked up over $40,000 in gambling debt. It started with sports bets, then poker, then borrowing from very dangerous people. Your parents didn't want anyone to know, so they secretly put up the Fort Collins house as collateral to pay it off. My brows furrowed. They mortgaged the house back then? They did. Then, when Jacob opened that bar in Greeley, it only lasted 6 months before going under. They took out high-interest loans to cover it. The following years were just one failed scheme after another. An unused mobile app, a luxury car rental business where cars were constantly returned late or damaged. How did they hide all this from me? Thomas looked at me with sad eyes. Because you never asked for anything. You studied, worked, handled life yourself. And as long as you didn't ask, they didn't tell. What you don't know is that the house has been mortgaged a 3rd time. They've been living on credit, waiting for Evelyn's estate to be split. My fists clenched. It felt like a blade carving through my chest. They're completely drained. Thomas handed me a cup of hot tea. Even their retirement accounts were emptied. Your father lied and said he was making long-term investments. His law practice has lost clients to younger firms. Your mother sold part of her jewelry collection just to get by. I opened the envelope. Inside were bank statements, mortgage contracts, stock transfer forms, everything bearing original signatures. Each document was a paper cut to the heart. Not just because of the money, but because of the toxic silence stretched over the years. Why now? Because Luther called me. Said if anyone could help you see the full picture, it would be the man your father pushed aside to protect Jacob. I once invested in a small business with Henry. When it started losing money, I suggested we sell to minimize losses. Henry refused, said he needed Jacob to remain a founding partner. In the end, we both lost everything. I took a long breath. Why you left the family? Not exactly. I left because I realized I couldn't save people who keep choosing to protect the one doing the damage. But Evelyn kept in touch. She told me if things ever got out of hand, you would be the only one strong enough to stop it. I leaned back, feeling like a heavy dust had finally lifted from my memory. She always knew. Tomas nodded. And she believed in you, not to guard the money, but to guard what's right. Sometimes the only one who says no is the only one who still knows how to love properly. I looked out the window. A soft rain had started to fall, cool and sobering as it tapped the table. This fight wasn't about money anymore. It was about drawing the final line of clarity in a drifting family. 3 days after meeting Uncle Thomas, I sent a short email to my parents and Jacob. Sunday, 10 o'clock a.m. Location, my apartment. Full attendance. Mandatory. No one replied. But on Sunday morning, right on time, all three showed up. My father wore a full suit like he was heading to court. My mother had on an emerald velvet dress, her face painted to perfection like a porcelain mask. Jacob wore a gray hoodie, hands in his pockets, gaze straight but hollow. My penthouse wasn't decorated to entertain family. Everything was angular, clean, and left no room for emotional theater. In the center of the table were folders, pens, and 2 glasses of water. Attorney Avery Klein sat beside me, frameless glasses on, eyes never leaving the laptop screen where the agreement document was already open. No one exchanged greetings. I began. We're not here today to negotiate. Every decision will be based on 3 principles: clarity, conditions, and no more manipulation. Jacob scoffed. That sounds more like a lease contract than a family meeting. I stared directly at him. If you want to keep living in a space paid with clean money, you'll want to pay attention. My mother started to speak. There's no need to be so harsh. I raised a hand. Now, part 1. About Jacob. You'll be fully funded to enter an inpatient program at Cedar Path Recovery Center, a facility specializing in financial addiction and risk behavior treatment. The program runs for 90 days. I'll cover all costs with my personal funds. This has nothing to do with Grandma Evelyn's estate. Jacob's eyes widened. You're putting me in rehab? You put yourself there. I'm just giving you one last off-ramp. If you refuse, all support ends immediately, including legal protection. My father leaned forward. That's coercion. No. That's a boundary. Moving on. Your finances. I opened a file and slid it toward my father. This is a debt restructuring plan drawn up by an independent advisor. It includes selling your current house, moving to a smaller apartment, consolidating high-interest loans into one manageable one, and stopping all new borrowing. My mother hissed quietly. Sell the house? Your father built that with his own hands and mortgaged it 3 times to pay Jacob's debts. No one has the emotional right to call it a family symbol anymore. I opened the 3rd folder. Regarding Jacob's current debt, total is $442,600. Of that, only $318,000 is legal: bank loans, credit cards, and registered financial institutions. The rest? No contracts, illegal interest rates. I'm not paying. Jacob stayed silent. My mother was about to object, but Avery spoke up for the first time. If you try to pay off unverified debt, you're enabling loan sharks. Miss Monroe isn't breaking the law. She's keeping you from committing a crime. I closed the folder. If Jacob completes treatment and shows progress through clinical evaluations, I will assist in negotiating those legal debts, but I will not transfer a cent to anyone, while there's even a hint of relapse. Jacob whispered, What if I fail? Then you'll have to learn to face the consequences. No one can live someone else's life forever. My father shook his head. And Evelyn? She wanted this family to stay together, not by buying forgiveness with money. She left her estate so we could learn to stand up, not so everyone could keep leaning on it. The room fell silent. No one signed anything, not yet. I didn't need their signatures. This wasn't a contract. It was a turning point. I didn't come here to beg for love. I came to say this. Things have changed. If anyone in this family wants to save themselves, now's the time. I've done my part. Jacob looked at me, no longer defiant, just tired. When's check in? Monday. I've reserved your spot. My mother wiped away tears but stayed quiet. My father turned away, fingers tapping lightly on the wooden table as if weighing his final move. I stood up. This meeting is over. If you want a fresh start, begin with honesty. The November afternoon in Telluride was thin with clouds, the scent of damp pine mixing with the chill like velvet wrapped around a white timber house. I stood on the porch, hands wrapped around a steaming mug of mint tea. In the yard, the last red maple leaves twirled down onto the dark earth, landing on the stone path I had just restored. The home Evelyn left me after months of historically accurate renovations felt settled now, truly mine. Everything preserved per her notes. The red oak handrails, the handcrafted stained glass above the kitchen. Inside, the reading room still held the brown leather chair she'd sit in each evening. The brass floor lamp still cast a warm glow on the shelf lined with old leather-bound books. I placed a small photo on the side table. The two of us on a trip when I was 16. Her hand resting on my shoulder, her smile saying more than words could. 3 days ago, Jacob called. "Got a minute? I'd like to give you an update." I agreed. We met at a small coffee shop on Pearl Street in Boulder, where he was temporarily staying in a transitional housing unit after treatment. Jacob looked thinner, but the panic in his eyes had faded. "I'm working at a plant nursery. It's light work, but I like it. Seeing greenery every morning. It quiets the noise in my head." "And your support group?" "I still go regularly, 3 nights a week. Some younger folks text me for help with homework or emotional stuff. It feels like I'm not a spare part anymore." I didn't respond right away. A part of me remained cautious, but another part quietly hoped. "You've come halfway. Don't stop now." He nodded. When we parted, Jacob didn't ask for anything. No guilt trips, just a simple, "Thanks for not throwing me away, even though you had every reason to." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. That sentence was enough. My parents now lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in Littleton. The Fort Collins house had been sold. Most of the proceeds went toward debts. They no longer vacationed in Palm Springs or hosted cocktail parties. My mother enrolled in cooking classes at the local community center. My father, after some resistance, took a position as a legal associate at a younger law firm. Less prestige, more stability. I didn't visit often, but we spoke regularly. 10-minute calls. Just enough to keep the thread intact, but not so tight it choked me like before. That evening, while reorganizing the bottom drawer beneath the bookshelf, I found a small velvet box tied with ivory ribbon. No label. No note. I opened it. Inside was an emerald necklace Evelyn had only worn on the most formal occasions. Tucked underneath, a folded letter sealed with red wax. Her handwriting unmistakable. My hands trembled as I opened it. "Dear Aaliyah, if you're reading this, it means you chose to stay. You chose to hold on to what no one else in this family dared. Strength matched with grace. I didn't leave the estate to you because I believed you were good with numbers. I left it because you're the only one who understands that money isn't the goal. It's the means to protect what matters. True legacy, Aaliyah, isn't in savings accounts or shares. It's in the ability to say no when others want you to forget your worth in exchange for counterfeit peace. Family may change, or not, but you already have. I'm proud of you. Evelyn." I placed the letter back inside and closed the box gently. The room felt quieter, as if the walls themselves could hear my heartbeat. Outside, snow began to fall. Slightly, just enough to dust the stone path, coat the pine wood eaves, and make the lights inside sparkle like little crystals through the windows. I didn't need anything else. The legacy was here. In the stillness. In the boundaries. In every breath. No longer controlled by anyone but me. Aaliyah's story is a reminder that being born into a family doesn't always mean being loved the right way. She found the courage to draw a line and stepped away from the role of the fixer to honor what truly mattered. In real life, her journey reminds us that kindness should never be used as an excuse for others to take advantage. Sometimes the greatest strength isn't forgiveness. It's having the power to say enough and to live by our own truth no matter what others expect. What do you think of Aaliyah's choices? Would you have the courage to set those boundaries? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful family stories and personal journeys.